Welcome to today's analysis. If you've pulled into a petrol pump literally anywhere in India recently, you've probably noticed this tiny but absolutely massive label popping up on the dispensers, E20. It kind of feels like it appeared out of nowhere, right? It's sudden, it's everywhere, and honestly, it represents a gigantic shift in what we're actually pumping into our tanks. But what does that little label actually mean for you, your engine, and, well, the entire country? Okay, let's dive right into this. E20 simply means a 20% ethanol blend in our petrol. The huge question we're unpacking today is this. Is this massive nationwide shift an absolutely brilliant move that's saving our economy, or is it secretly wrecking the vehicles we rely on every single day? To figure that out, we're going to quickly map out this journey. First, we'll look at the rapid rise of E20, then the big macro wins for India. After that, we'll hit the real-world challenges for everyday consumers. And finally, we'll peek into the Flex Fuel future.
Section 1. The Rise of E20.
So to understand why E20 is suddenly the new normal, we have to talk about a pretty major vulnerability. India is an absolute economic powerhouse, but here's the catch. We are the world's third largest oil importer. We have to buy a staggering 80 to 85% of our crude oil from abroad. That dependency, it literally drains billions of dollars from our foreign exchange reserves every single year, leaving us totally at the mercy of global market swings. And that vulnerability is exactly why the government put the pedal to the metal on this. Think about this. Back in 2014, we were barely blending 1.5% ethanol into our petrol. The original, long-term goal was to hit a 20% blend by the year 2030, but policy and execution just accelerated at lightning speed, and we actually hit that 20% target in 2025. That's a full 5 years ahead of schedule. For a country of our size, that kind of pivot is practically unheard of.
Section 2. Big wins for India.
So, the crucial point here is monumental. By replacing a fraction of imported petrol with homegrown ethanol, which we mostly get from sugarcane and maize, India has saved over 1 lakh crore rupees in foreign exchange since 2014. I mean, wow, right? That is a massive chunk of change. It means all that wealth actually stays within our borders, heavily boosting our national energy security and making us a whole lot more self-reliant. But the wins for the country actually go way beyond just saving Forex. We're talking about tens of thousands of crores in extra income flowing straight into the pockets of the farmers growing these crops. Environmentally, ethanol burns cleaner. It's what's called an oxygenated fuel, so it actively helps lower carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, and particulate matter. That means cleaner air and millions of tons of reduced CO2 emissions. Plus, the sheer scale of the rollout has created a ton of new jobs across distilleries, transport, and the whole supply chain. At a macro level, it's a huge victory. However, we do need to balance the scales here. Because while the nation as a whole and the agricultural sector are popping champagne, the everyday consumer, the person actually paying for the fuel and maintaining the car, well, they might be experiencing a very, very different reality. Section 3. Challenges for everyday consumers. Let's step away from the big macroeconomic data for a second and talk about your daily commute. Now, what's really interesting about these numbers is the basic science of energy density. Ethanol simply contains less energy per liter than pure petrol. If you were to run purely on E100, your mileage would plummet by roughly 25 to 30%. Even with the E20 blend we have now, you're looking at about a 4 to 7% drop in your vehicle's mileage. In real terms, you're getting fewer kilometers per liter, which means you're hitting the petrol pump more often, effectively buying more fuel just to drive the exact same distance. And honestly, that mileage drop is just the tip of the iceberg. If you happen to drive an older vehicle, say something from 10 or 15 years ago, E20 can actually cause some silent engine damage. You see, ethanol is kind of like a sponge. It naturally absorbs moisture right out of the air. That water can silently rust metal parts and eat away at older rubber fuel lines that simply were never designed to handle it. Zooming out to the ecology, sugarcane is an insanely water-intensive crop. Pushing for more ethanol means using way more land and water, which sparks a very real food versus fuel debate. If we dedicate too much fertile land to fuel crops, we risk food security and inflation. And the kicker for most drivers, despite getting lower mileage and despite the fuel being locally grown, consumers haven't really seen any drop in the retail price of petrol. Section 4. The Flex Fuel future. So, how do we fix this? To bridge the gap between these massive national goals and the frustrating consumer reality, The industry is shifting towards something called 2G, or second-generation ethanol. Instead of using thirsty food crops, 2G ethanol is made from agricultural waste, stuff like crop stubble and bamboo. This is a total game changer. It tackles that food versus fuel debate head-on, it saves water, and it actually pays farmers for their agricultural waste. That means they are financially incentivized to not burn that stubble, which is a huge win for reducing winter air pollution.
Let's move on and see how this builds right into the vehicles themselves. Enter flex fuel vehicles. Major manufacturers like Maruti and Hero are already engineering these and rolling them out. These are not your old-school legacy engines. They are built from the ground up with specialized materials, heavy-duty fuel lines, and smart sensors that can instantly adjust to run on absolutely any blend of petrol and ethanol, all the way up to 100%. It's the permanent, high-tech answer to the engine wear and tear we're seeing in older cars right now.
So as we wrap up this analysis, it's pretty clear we are looking at a really delicate balancing act. On one hand, E20 is an undeniable massive win for India's energy security, our farmers, and our carbon footprint. On the other hand, it brings some very real, very tangible challenges when it comes to mileage efficiency, older engine compatibility, and your out-of-pocket costs at the pump. The shift is already here, but it leaves us with an absolutely crucial question to reflect on. Is E20 benefiting you, or is your vehicle actually feeling the strain? Let me know your thoughts and real-world experiences down in the comments, and keep this whole balance in mind the next time you're filling up the tank. Thanks for joining me to unpack all this.